Well, I'll tell you this. When I was 16 years old, I didn't like any Republicans. I don't even understand how we got into this mess, except for that nitwit that got elected to something. I don't know what that is.
Mr. Altman, do white people care about black kids dying down there in the hood? Do you think they really care?
Well, I hope so. I do. Too often, though, I think sometimes white people don't really care about it because it's just people killing each other in North St. Louis, and they don't live there. It's not their kids. It's
right.
So you could just
it's not happening in our neighborhood.
You can disconnect yourself. Except somebody gets robbed outside of out of the stadium. That's like page one news.
Langford Cunningham, and boy, the text line is going crazy. People just love him. What a great message.
Love a straight talker.
St. Louis man says he had to lose his sight in order to find his vision.
See, today we forgot about the message. We have to get back to a message.
And it's the commercialization and exploitation of our culture that continues this vicious cycle of death, darkness, and destruction.
Got a lot of the females rapping today, okay? They twerking, they're doing prostitution on records, leading little girls into the strip clubs. That leads into human trafficking. They don't promote Taylor Swift like that. Right. But our black women gotta get prostituted in the industry.
Oh, the burgers. Boy, the baby mamas, man, they feed their kid nuggets, french fries. You telling me they are putting poison in their mouth?
I'm telling you, it's a weapon of mass destruction.
Elon Musk made a comment that hands up, don't shoot, was a hoax. How you feel about that, Mike Brown Sr.?
Those words would have never been said if that would have never happened to Mike Brown Jr. So what you saying? What happened to Mike Brown Jr. was fake? Hey, people be playing with the wrong folks, man.
They left the responsibility onto you to search for your daughter. You didn't get no assistance from the police department. You didn't get no assistance from the political officials.
No, I did not.
Let's elaborate more on this service station.
A human trafficking ring that was going on at that mobile. They arrested the guy, and as soon as he got out, the station was back open once again.
It's the Blind City Podcast takeover, you know.
You know who the most dangerous man in the world is?
Who?
A blind man with vision. Thank you. Reba Dirty.
Blind City, the podcast. I'm your host, LC. You can check us out on social media, blindcitypodcast.com, Blind City Podcast, YouTube, Blind City Podcast, Instagram. I have a historic show this evening. Or I should say tonight, late night, to all my late night people coming in from the club, coming in from the comedy shows, or you just snuggled up with your little baby in the bed and you got Blind City on. The blind man is here. I had to lose my sight to find my vision. And I have a historic night tonight. Mark Kasem inside the city and Jamie Allman is inside the city. So, fellas, how you doing? Thank you for pulling up to the city.
Doing great. I'm honored to be on the program. This is fantastic. I'm excited to meet you for the first time, too.
Oh, no, I know.
I love it. Yeah, thanks for having me.
You see me, but I don't see you.
I understand.
Okay, all right.
I do.
And I'll say that after 20 years, I wouldn't be looking forward to the likelihood of an understanding between me and Jamie, but... Right?
Well, we have an understanding.
Yeah, well, we have an understanding.
That you're wrong most of the time.
Yeah, that we disagree.
And all that's cool. You know,
right.
we've been friends for a long time. It's actually a great measure. I have him on the show sometimes and had him on the TV show when I did that. And one of the things that I wish we could learn more to do is have conversations like the ones that we have and still be friends. You know, I have people on the show like, why do you have him on? It's like, well, I have him on because if we have disagreements, this is where you kind of sharpen your sword a little bit, get some practice in, find out maybe where there might be some agreement, might be also where you might have some places where you could say, hey, maybe I'm not thinking about this properly. So I like the exercise. It's good for people of two different kinds of perspectives to be together sometimes.
And that's the only way we can bring the city together, the state together, Missouri. We have too many people sharing their thoughts and ideas on how they feel behind closed doors, but the only way we can get things accomplished, we have to speak to each other. Whether we disagree or not, we are still human beings.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this. When I was 16 years old, I didn't like any Republicans. any, ever. They were all terrible people. But, you know, I grew up. You would hope that the country could maybe grow up sometime. You know, 20, 21, 22 years old, and pretty soon you realize that everybody doesn't have to think the same way. It's ridiculous. I don't even understand how we got into this mess, except for that nitwit that got elected to something. I don't know what that is.
Well, some of it comes too, LC and Mark, from the standpoint, I grew up, I'm a youngest of 6. So everybody has different opinions, but nobody holds their opinions and tie their opinions to their person, their egos, or what have you. I've always said, even when on my program, that I don't have to be right. I'm just going to tell you what I think, but I don't have to be right. And a lot of times what happens is people get into these knockdown drag-em-outs because they absolutely have to be right. Their politics is tied into their self-worth and their egos and everything else, and that's where you get the fights. That's where you get the personal attacks. That's where you get those kinds of things because people just can't untie themselves from their points of view sometimes. And keep in mind, it's always just a point of view. I mean, my mom is 95 years old. She and I have vodka and read scripture together once a week, right? and she hates Donald Trump, you know, and I love him. So, but my mom and I have this relationship where we can talk and have fun with it. And, you know, I always think that she doesn't like him because he reminds me of my dad, right? Reminds her of my dad, you know, and so we just have fun with it. But I think a lot of it, LC, is tied to our personalities, and we can't let go of it. And so we get defensive, sometimes even a little loud, and I understand that, but that's where I think a lot of it comes from.
Well, yes, and it's definitely emotions because we all have passionate feelings about our communities. And let's start with the first topic, fellas. The crime here in St. Louis with our mayor. Mr. Alban, I know you was in the St. Patrick's Day parade and you ran into the mayor.
Yes.
Seems like Tashara Jones, I'm very disgusted with her. I'm going to be honest with you. Matter of fact, let's get right to the point. I'm disgusted with all the black people that's in politics in St. Louis. First time in history, we had black people have control of the city. And look what happened. Couple get arrested. The Bosley kid just got charges against him from the federal government. And Tashara Jones, I really don't know if she know what she doing with this crime. The police chief haven't really spoken to the community. He hasn't been on no urban radio stations to talk to us, black people. Once you come into a community, especially with black people being through with the police brutality in our community, wouldn't you want to speak to the people in that community first so we can feel comfortable with you? What you think, Mr. Alman?
Well, I noticed in the city of St. Louis that when it comes to building gigantic honorifics to wealthy people, like soccer stadiums and ballpark villages and domes and things like that, I realize that's part of a developing economy. But when you, like, for instance, when they built the dome on the near north side there, and it basically was so big that it cast a shadow in these neighborhoods of people who couldn't even afford groceries for the week. And I'm not saying that we have to redistribute wealth or do that kind of thing, but I am saying that there's a philosophy, there's a vibe, and there's a messaging that is sent that people in the city of St. Louis aren't important. I don't care whether it's because you're pulling out all the stops to have migrants come in. You saw what happened in Chicago, where the black groups in Chicago are now suing the city over the migration situation because, once again, black people always come third, you know, wherever you're going.
Absolutely.
Honestly, they do. And I'm not quite sure I understand the philosophy, because you'd think that with black leadership that they would be most concerned with making sure that black people can live in a city with healthy schools without having to be attacked walking down the street, without seeing people who are arrested for attacking them out on the street 24 hours later. And you're not going to get anybody turning anybody in under those circumstances. So that philosophy is really confusing to me. You'd think that that even black politicians would be better caretakers of the black population than white politicians would, but that doesn't bear out.
I think personally a lot of the black politicians in St. Louis is stealing from the community. I've been asking for the feds to go investigate Wellston City Hall, Pagedale City Hall. I think they are stealing. How can these communities, these small municipalities, still be oppressed over 40, 50 years?
People steal, sure. People have bad policies, fine. That's not what causes crime. That's not allowing bad people to prey on anybody in any community. You've got problems in the way people behave, sure. First of all, it's neither a black problem or a white problem, although I know we always end up talking about the black on black crime problem, and we've talked about that ourselves here, Langford. But, you know, the issue is really simple. If you've got a lousy educational system and you got a lot of young people running around doing crazy things, well, that will lead to crime. Now, the mayor doesn't control that. The Board of Aldermen doesn't control that. Really, for the last 20 years, there have been a lot of faceless white people who have been pushing around the superintendent of the St. Louis Public Schools. He's gone now.
And you know where he went?
Well, listen,
you know where he went to go make another $1 million?
Yeah.
Almost. Yeah, you know what I'm finna say, right?
No, we talked about it. I forget even where it is.
Harris Stowe University.
Well, is he over there? Okay, and I think we did talk about that. But look, here's the thing. He did a lousy job, and he had white people telling him how to do that job, and he kept doing it. And I had other black people telling me, oh, he's a great guy. And I met with Kelvin. We spent lots of time together. All I can remember is one conversation where I told him that there were people who would leave the St. Louis public school system for less money if they could be respected. And his response to me was, it's the system, Mark. And my response to him was, you're the system.
What happens to the schools? You say that it's all about the schools, right?
Oh, it's
okay.
Definitely.
So here's where we go back in LC. We can go back to the time when white liberal guiltists, and black liberals who were marching to the white liberals' orders created desegregation. They said that, oh, it's going to be a good idea to wake black kids up at 5 o'clock in the morning because the savior of the black child is some white kids in Parkway. That didn't work out. They abandoned the city schools. They ghettoized the city schools. Most of these black kids who were bussed out to Parkway and that kind of thing, their parents couldn't go to PTO meetings. If they're a one-car family or what have you, it's 20 miles away. You had that disconnect. And then even in athletes, when black kids went into athletics, they had to be taxi-cabbed home at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Meanwhile, you got the broken glass syndrome with the city schools, and it all goes back to all these white liberal wet dreams of creating desegregation, but really it ghettoized the schools and made the black community suffer more.
Well,
not
first
less.
Of all, that's ancient history, really.
Well, but if you talk about the public schools being a problem, that ancient history is current history because that's what caused the public schools to deteriorate. Nobody was going to them.
Not at all. In fact, and I have to bring this up. I've been 5 years at Cardinal Ritter College Prep, which is 1 mile down the street from Vashon High School. All of our students are black, and let me tell you, this school is fabulously functional. The kids are doing great. There's no problem. There's no fighting. There are no issues that you would know to be down the street 1 mile away. So you explain to me why Cardinal Ritter can do it right, and they can't do it at Vashon, and they can't do it at Roosevelt, and they can't do it at any of the St. Louis public schools. And the answer, and you can tell me what you think it is, but I'll tell you that the answer is coming right from the top. If you've got horrible people running things and not caring about kids, not respecting teachers, not encouraging people to respect and care about each other, then you have absolute catastrophe.
We had uniforms back when I went.
Yeah, we have uniforms, but that's not the structure that means
But I'm
anything.
gonna tell you though, it sets the tone.
No.
When you get kids coming in school with $200 shoes, some kids can't afford $200 shoes. They getting bullied in the school.
Yeah, that's not the problem.
And then you got irresponsible teachers in the school that's just passing kids to be passing them, not really spending time with the children. They can't control the classroom. I was an in-school suspension monitor. You know how many times they kept running to me because she or he couldn't control the classroom? Some of the teachers are intimidated by some of the kids that go to the school in those neighborhoods.
Everything that hip hop is doing, first to go gold, first to go platinum, first on the cover of Rolling Stone. I don't even play basketball and I got a sneaker deal like Michael Jordan. There's gotta be more to life to this, and I couldn't figure it out. Long story short, I was an alcoholic, suicidal, metaphysical, spiritual wreck who was thinking of killing himself. And I was like...
While all this was going on.
Yeah, Down with the King was out and this and that, but that's where I was at. I was DMC to y'all, but inside there was turmoil.
And let me say this to you on-air DJs and radio hosts. The music that you play in our community that degrades us as a people and promote drugs and prostitution through records. How can you sleep at night? Is it really that bad you got to get a check from killing your own people?
If you found this content helpful, please share this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Blind City, the podcast.
I remember back in the 90s, I hate to keep referencing how old I am, but when I was working at Channel 4, we had a group of officers, and actually one of them wound up being chief of police, called the Crack Team. And Ron Clyer and all these other guys. I can't remember who the chief of police was before this new one, but he was part of the crack team too. So they would go up there in North St. Louis, and they got rid of the crack problem in a matter of about 9 or 10 months because they made arrests, they prosecuted people. Jennifer Joyce followed through on the prosecutions. The prosecutor's office doesn't even bother adding on charges for gun crimes, that kind of thing. So there really is no reason not to be a criminal right now in the city of St. Louis.
Yeah, there's no reason to have something that you just said, which is one of the biggest problems that we've got, and that's the guns, which you love, you'd
Now they
toss
did.
them out all over the street.
Yeah, they did pass them bills, though. Right, they passed some bills, and they knew it was going to affect the city before the suburbs.
Right, but keep in mind what's going to happen is when a government starts to try to disarm its citizens, I guarantee you there are a lot of black people in North St. Louis, go to Wren Avenue sometime. They want their guns. Because that's the only thing keeping them alive. It's the only thing protecting them.
They do want their guns.
You can't disarm a community like that.
They want their guns,
right.
And it's not good for them.
But we wanted responsibility with the guns,
exactly,
though.
Yeah,
because that bill they passed, it put the guns into the youth to walk around with them ARs.
Yeah,
see what I'm saying?
That was that Amendment 5 thing, which was a complete and total disaster.
Right.
Even for a person who is a gun rights supporter and a Second Amendment supporter, that was a disaster.
Yeah, if we pulled the gun, and I didn't even bring that one up because it's so silly because we're not going to do it because you guys won't allow it. But if we could get the guns out of this place, we'd be 1,000 times better.
Okay, so how are you going to do that? Since you guys always are so smart about disarmament, how are you going to do that? What do you do, go door to door and take people's guns away? The gun buyback program was, remember when Harmon did that, where everybody turned their guns in? But the criminals aren't going to turn their guns in.
Simple thing. We'll get you, because you've got a radio show. I mean, people listen to you. We'll get you to, first of all, give all your guns back to the...
That's never going to happen.
No. That's what I'm talking about.
Well, it can't happen. You can't have a citizenry...
You could lead the way.
You can't have a citizenry that's out-armed by their government. That's why the Second Amendment was created. The Founding Fathers didn't want that ever to happen again.
That's absolutely not anything to do with why there's a Second Amendment.
Yes, it is.
And you've got the book sitting on your desk by Saul Cornell, and all you got to do is read it, and the next thing you know, you and I will be giving your guns back.
Law-abiding citizens should never give their guns up. It's crazy. I mean, I guarantee you realize that when you commit a crime with a gun under Missouri state law, it's automatically an extra 45 years. That charge is never put up on people who commit crimes with a gun right now. With this new prosecutor, I think maybe Jennifer Joyce did it. These are all very technical situations that are not even in any way, shape, or form utilized. The laws are there to send people to prison for a long time who commit crimes with guns.
But Jamie, look, you know the killing. Every day the killing goes on. I mean, yesterday it was Las Vegas.
Right.
Okay. Everywhere. It doesn't stop.
But again, explain to me then how you do the process of taking the guns away and have the criminals have their guns taken away too. Because you're telling me to turn my gun in. There's no criminal that's going to be turning his gun in.
No, I'm telling you not just to turn it in, but to lead the way with your voice and tell all of your followers and everybody else, we're going to give back our guns. So we're going to support Joe Biden to get the guns off the street. I mean, I know we're both laughing at this, but
let's ask this question.
But I'll tell you, you could do it.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you one thing. In Israel, the problem was not too many guns, but too few.
Yeah, the problem
because Israel had their gun restrictions, and the Sunday after that massacre, they loosened their gun restrictions. Now everybody's buying.
But hold on, fellas. Hold on.
Let
me ask this question. Let me ask this question, since we on guns and the killing. Mr. Altman, do you think do white people care about black kids dying down there in the hood? Do you think they really care?
Well, I hope so. I do. Because if you really want to talk about Black Lives Mattering, that actually does really matter. And the problem is that,
that was a fraud in itself.
Too often, though, I think sometimes white people don't really care about it because it's just people killing each other in North St. Louis, and they don't live there. It's not their kids. It's
right.
So you could just
it's not happening in our neighborhood.
You can disconnect yourself, except somebody gets robbed outside of out of the stadium. That's like page one news.
Right.
The news media also covers crime like it's just wallpaper. They don't cover the pathos. I saw a story on one of the channels where they were literally interviewing somebody whose family member was a victim of a gun crime, and they were interviewing them on the porch of their house. Right next to their house was it was an abandoned home that had boards up and everything else. If you want to know the real problem with crime and the real problem with violence is there aren't enough people in these neighborhoods. There are 3 or 4 houses that are inhabited by people, and the rest are all boarded up, broken, what have you. And that actually is an indicator of a larger problem. And so, yeah, I think white people do care about black kids dying.
Yeah, I don't think they care one bit, except I do agree that, number one, Jamie cares. No, I know that's true, but I think that white people generally don't care, and I think that you're just not seeing
well, there's
it,
a difference
Jamie,
between caring and knowing what the solution is.
Well, I'm going to tell you why I asked that question, because, I live in West County. So I came from Shreve and Betsy, one of the notorious Crip neighborhoods out of St. Louis, and I made it out by getting educated. So white people need to understand, when they go to the Blues game, they go to the Cardinals game, if the crime is out of control, now they can be affected by that crime. And some of them have. They got robbed, cars broken into. It still affects everybody in the city and county. And now they're coming out, some of them coming out to West County.
Oh, yeah.
The carjackers now.
Yep.
So it does affect. So it's a humanity problem. We have to look at it together to try to stop this issue, whether it's black or any other kids. The problem is they think it's not going to reach them, and it is coming out. It's coming out there to them. Because I taught juvenile detention. I worked in juvenile detention, and we had a lot of kids come in from stealing cars out in Chesterfield.
Yeah.
So it is coming out to West County.
They hardly don't do it in St. Charles County anymore because they put helicopters up and chase them all day long if they have to. One of the things I think that people can do who come down to St. Louis, to the Blues games or to the boat shows and that kind of thing, the people who steal guns know exactly, uncannily, which cars have the guns and which cars don't. And people come down, They bring their guns with them. The boat show is a great example of that. Any kind of boat show or home show or even a gun show for that matter, you can be pretty much guaranteed you hit that parking lot, you'll get 20 guns.
Well, and I can tell you, you're right, because, over at Forest Park, at Dwight Davis, Berger, Jim Berger, the pickleball impresario, okay? Whenever they have all their events down there, the people park their cars, and along come the kids, and they smash the windows on the cars, and they get the guns and anything else they can.
Yeah, because the kids are smarter than the patrons down there, because they keep leaving their guns in the car, and these kids are smarter than what you think.
Yeah, and there aren't enough police. Our police department's been gutted. There aren't enough police officers on the street. That's a financial issue. You talk about NFL money. How many police officers could you hire with that lawsuit money?
60 years ago. And that would go a long way to fixing this country. In the meantime, I don't even have to worry about the other things that you were saying, because that man that you talked about, who is the worst criminal that ever got close to the White House, is going straight to jail where he belongs.
Wait, you're saying you want to send 1 million kids down across the border
to
train people to take their place?
What are you talking about?
Well, because why don't you take those 1 million kids and have them go to these schools that Donald Trump's talking about creating that aren't colleges? It's an American university, which is totally free. That's what he wanted to do.
Listen.
So why would you send 1 million American kids down to train a Mexican to take their place in American society?
Yeah, if Donald Trump wants to start a new school system within the prison system, be my guest, because that's about all he's going to have a chance to do. And the kids that we're talking about sending down there for a year to help these people come in to assimilate, you then send them off to college, where you pay for their college, like we did under the GI Bill, and you'll have the greatest explosion of growth in this country since the GI Bill.
The money that it would cost to send 1 million kids down to train people to become Americans who replace them, you could use that money to send them to school.
Yeah, I know how to do this, but we don't have enough time. But trust me, it'll work.
Well, wait a minute. When we talk about prison, Biden sent more Negroes to prison with the 3 strikes law in the 90s. So let's don't act like Mr. Biden is Mr. Clean.
I'm not worried about anybody else.
He didn't pass some bills that were home for the black people before he came president.
I'm just worried about the worst guy.
Matter of fact,
100 times worse than Richard Nixon.
Matter of fact, Donald Trump has released more Negroes out of prison than Biden.
Yeah, and he's also released a few other people out of prison, too. But you know what? We won't worry about that now, because we don't want to wreck the rest of your show.
Oh, man, I love it. Mr. Casey, thank you for pulling up to the city. The legendary Jamie Allman, man. The Patriot 1049. Keep doing what you're doing, brother.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. It's an honor to be on the show.
Thank you. LC, Langford Cunningham. Thank you to my listening audience. I hope you can take something from this conversation. And like I said, it's not about black or white. It's just about making our politicians accountable in our community. And then we have to do what we got to do, because sometimes we can't rely on these politicians. We got to get out there and take our community back, whether it's helping the kids at the recreational center, helping the homeless, whatever you got to do, get back in your community, because the black churches have misled you. It's not about worshiping Jesus. It's about becoming like Jesus. BlindCityPodcast.com. Blind City Podcast, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, or go to BlindCityPodcast.com. Street Politics Media.